Welcome to our channel, ladies and gentlemen. Chaos erupted in Parliament today when the Azimio members of Parliament rushed to occupy the majority seats in Parliament in accordance with the ruling that was made by a three-judgment High Court that quashed the ruling that was made earlier by the Speaker of the National Assembly, Moses Wetangula, that gave the Kenya Kwanza the authority to occupy the majority seats in Parliament. Now, it is Millie Odhiambo who started off by petitioning the Speaker of the National Assembly to respect that ruling. He even attempted to tell the Speaker to step aside because the court had noted that Moses Wetangula cannot have his cake and eat it. Then followed Junet who was before that ruling the minority leader in the National Assembly. Kindly take a look.
Millie Odhiambo, take the floor. Order.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker.
Order.
Mr. Speaker, I rise under Standing Order 19A and 20. Mr. Speaker.
Hold on, Millie. Honorable members, can we hear Millie Odhiambo? Order, Anjala. Order. 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 Honorable Gertrude Mbeyu and those who are conducting themselves like you, Honorable Mawade, the excitement does not preclude the application of standing orders. And if I see you getting rowdy again, I'll request you to leave the chamber. Millie Odhiambo. Order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I stand under Standing Order 19A and Standing Order 20. Mr. Speaker, and in furtherance of a recent decision by the High Court HTC number E202 of 2023, Kenneth Njagi Njiru and 11 others versus the National Assembly of Kenya and others. Mr. Speaker, I will not go to the demerits and merits of that matter. I will go to what the court concluded, which is that the Azimio side is the majority. And based on that, Mr. Speaker, again, because I've said I'm not going to the merits and demerits of that decision, Mr. Speaker, I want to just indicate that I have therefore, as the majority party whip of Azimio, today handed over to your office a copy of that decision of the High Court with a letter that we are giving you according to the standing orders, our majority leader as Honorable Junet Mohammed and Honorable Robert Mbui. Mr. Speaker, following the standing orders, Honorable Junet will thereafter then communicate me officially as the minority whip, going by what the standing orders, but a majority whip. Majority. Mr. Speaker, I also stand under Standing Order 90 and had actually consulted you about this. And Mr. Speaker, if you look at the judgment of that court, the court actually infer that because of the position you hold as Speaker and also as Chairman of your party, Mr. Speaker, it is not as party leader of your party, Mr. Speaker, it is not possible for you, to be fair, you are going to be conflicted when you are conducting the matters of this House. Mr. Speaker, I therefore humbly request you to step down and mandate Honorable Gladys Boschole to take over in discharging the functions as the Speaker because of your conflict of interest. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker.
Order. Order.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in concluding, Mr. Speaker, because I said I'm not going to go to the merits and demerits of the matter, in concluding, I want to urge that as a parliament, we need to obey court rulings and decisions, even when we don't agree with them. And Mr. Speaker, I also just want to indicate that you can see my two colleagues are standing next to me. My advice to them in future is to follow a philosophy from my community which says, Telo ikao, telo kumingato. So next time they should do what Honorable Ruku did. Jump if you have to, but take your position the way Honorable Millie has done.
Yes, I've received the letter. I'll analyze it. I have given you an opportunity to speak to her point of order or any other point of order. Yes. Yes, Junet Mohammed.
Mr. Speaker, first I want to say today that I am privileged to speak from the seat of the majority leader. Mr. Speaker. Because, Mr. Speaker, even when I sat on the seat, it is very warm, Mr. Speaker, unlike mine, which was very cold, Mr. Speaker. I didn't know the seats of Parliament have different warmth, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, I don't foresee myself leaving this seat anytime soon. I don't see myself leaving this one anytime. But having said, Mr. Speaker, as you are aware and as you have alluded to, Mr. Speaker, there is a court ruling. A ruling of court consisting of 3-judge bench, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, a court ruling has only got 2 decisions, Mr. Speaker. There is no third way about it. One is to obey it, and secondly, if you have any avenue of appeal, you exercise that right of appeal, Mr. Speaker. There is no third way about it, Mr. Speaker. And the court ruling, what we went as Azimio after the election, after your decision here, Mr. Speaker, what took us to court was for the court to interpret for us the constitutionality of your decision on who is the majority party and who is the minority party in this House, Mr. Speaker. And the issue of the Speaker came in as obiter, Mr. Speaker. But what took us to court, we wanted to know, because when we arrived here after the election, we arrived here knowing very well that we are the majority party, Mr. Speaker. And we are the numbers. But midway, we ended up losing numbers through your ruling, Mr. Speaker. And that is what took us to court, to ascertain whether we are the majority and whether we are the minority. And luckily, the court has made its ruling, albeit late, Mr. Speaker. We expected this ruling much earlier than this time, Mr. Speaker. But it is better late than never. The decision arrived, and the decision has said that the Azimio party is the majority party in Parliament, Mr. Speaker. And I so happen to be the minority leader as of now, Mr. Speaker. So today afternoon, I just switched seats and I took over the role of majority leader, Mr. Speaker. And I am capable of doing that work, Mr. Speaker. I have the capacity, I have the qualifications, I have the capabilities, I have the numbers in the House, Mr. Speaker, to lead, Mr. Speaker. I have everything what it takes, Mr. Speaker, to be the majority leader of this House, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, the issue that we need to exercise, to analyze, Mr. Speaker, is that, Mr. Speaker, I want to say this. Mr. Speaker, court rulings are very important, Mr. Speaker. You remember after the election, we disputed the result of the election. We ended up filing a court case in the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court pronounced itself that we did not win the election, and the other party won the election, and we abided by it, and we respected the court ruling, Mr. Speaker. This court ruling also must be respected, Mr. Speaker. Because it's not like any other court ruling, Mr. Speaker. It's a ruling of the Court of the Republic of Kenya, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this ruling cannot be taken jokingly, Mr. Speaker. When I went through it last evening, Mr. Speaker, these judges are raising very serious fundamental issues. They are raising issues relating to violation of the Constitution, Mr. Speaker. And you remember we impeached someone here because he violated the Constitution, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if this matter is not addressed, we are going to have a constitutional crisis in this country, Mr. Speaker. So for that reason, Mr. Speaker, jurisdictions all over the world and democracies all over the world that we borrowed from, even this presidential system that we are running today that is running in this country, Mr. Speaker. In the United States, there are times when the executive is from the Republican Party and the House is ruled by the Democratic Party, and life goes on. It doesn't matter that we are going to oppose everything that the government wants to do. If government brings here bills and policies that are of benefit to the country, we will support it, Mr. Speaker. And as you know now, many things have gone under the bridge. There is this animal called also broad-based, Mr. Speaker. We want to broaden, deepen, and tighten this relationship, Mr. Speaker. If I may borrow your words, we want to broaden it, deepen it, and tighten it, Mr. Speaker, so that we can have a country that is cohesive, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there is no way we are going to have this animal in place, and then when we want to become the majority, people look at us with suspicious eyes. How can it be, Mr. Speaker? Members of Parliament are members of Parliament. They work under the Article 95 of the Constitution, which has given them the roles of oversight, legislation, and representation, Mr. Speaker. We are not going to do our business outside Article 95, Mr. Speaker. So I want to allay fears here that the majority in the House must be from the ruling party. That this ruling is giving us posterity. This is doing things for posterity, Mr. Speaker. Next election or the other election in 2032, a government might come in place where the president garners the majority votes and is elected as the president, but he will not have numbers in parliament. His numbers might be few in parliament and it becomes a minority. So this is now the trend we are setting, that parliament is independent, judiciary is independent, executive is independent. We have no problem with the executive to do their work, and we know the President of the Republic of Kenya as of today is Honorable William Samoei Ruto, Mr. Speaker. There is no doubt about that. So there should be no ambiguity and doubt that the majority leader in the National Assembly is Honorable Junet, the Member of Parliament for Junet, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker. And I am going to serve the country diligently, Mr. Speaker, without any fear and favor, Mr. Speaker. I am a seasoned politician. I am serving my third term in Parliament, Mr. Speaker. I know how Parliament operates. I know how Parliament does its work, and I understand how bills are done in this Parliament, Mr. Speaker. I have gained enough experience. So this mindset,
wind up,
Mr. Speaker, this mindset that the ruling party must have majority in Parliament for them to do the executive work of the country, Mr. Speaker, that mindset must be gotten rid of, Mr. Speaker. We must emulate democracies that have matured over 200 years, Mr. Speaker. In the last election, in the last administration of Biden in America, Mr. Speaker,
wind up.
The Republican Party was controlling the House, Mr. Speaker, and the Democratic Party was controlling the Senate, and life was going on as usual, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, my advice to the House and to Parliament in general is that the only solution to this problem is to go to appeal. Until the appeal overturns this matter, I shall be recognized as the majority leader of the Republic of Kenya. Mr. Speaker, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Those few remarks, I conclude.
Even in the Senate, things were not different. This is Boni Alwale pleading with the Speaker of the Senate to protect him because his seat had been taken by his counterpart from the Azimio coalition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise to strongly support this motion, but I wish to seek... Sorry, Mr. Speaker, let me swallow my words. I rise to strongly second this motion. And Mr. Speaker, before I give reasons why I'm seconding, I'm seeking for your protection. Mr. Speaker, I have been thrown out of my position where I normally sit. Mr. Speaker, you can see my kid sister, much as she likes me very much, she's seated on my seat. I don't know where I'm supposed to sit. I am the chief whip of the government. My seat is supposed to be there. What are you doing? Can you please protect me? I want my seat back. When I'm not there, I don't think very well, Mr. Speaker.
Remember earlier, Kalonzo Musyoka had urged the members of the Azimio fraternity to go for their seats because he told them it is their right based on the ruling of the High Court. But ladies and gentlemen, things are not rosy in Parliament. And I want you to listen to Moses Wetangula, who was telling the parliamentarians that despite the ruling from the court, I'm not going to obey that ruling. It is going to be the speaker, in other words, Moses Wetangula, after the debate, after parliamentarians deliberate on this, that will finally come up with a decision as to whether it is the Azimio or the Kenya Kwanza that should be the majority coalition.
Mele Odhiambo has raised 2 points. One I'll dispose of very quickly, and the other I will allow the House some latitude. As to whether the Speaker, yours truly, should preside over these proceedings or not, I'll dispose it of as follows. One, there's no motion before the House about the Speaker. Number two, I am a senior lawyer in this country, and I'm your senior Mele Odhiambo. I have read that judgment with a tooth comb, and there's nowhere it requires the Speaker to do what you are saying. More particularly, the final findings of that judgment, which, as a distinguished learned friend, we had an opportunity to read through together today. That judgment does not cast aspersions on the Speaker presiding on such proceedings. Number 5, you as truly as your Speaker does not debate, does not vote. I hold a position of honor to preside over your proceedings. Anybody who wants to say anything about this judgment, I'll give you an opportunity. And it's finally going to be yours truly to give you a ruling on the matter. It must also be made very clear as we listen to each other that neither the court nor any authority outside this chamber, and senior lawyers like Otiendo Molo should know this, neither the court nor any other authority outside this chamber can make declarations that affect the conduct of business here except yourselves by voting and by the Speaker giving you rulings.
As all this was happening, it is reported that Kimani Ichungwa, who was hitherto that ruling was the majority leader, was nowhere to be seen. He was either chased or he was expecting quite a hot debate, and he didn't want to be part of he didn't want to witness that antagonizing debate. So he decided to keep off. But I want us to look at the debate very carefully, ladies and gentlemen. Number 1, court rulings are court rulings. And I like how Junet Mohammed was putting it, that after the 22 elections, presidential elections, they went to court because they felt their votes were rigged. But Madam Martha Koome, with all the non-judicial terms, hot air, wild goose chase, declared William Ruto victorious. Now, Azimio, despite the fact that they didn't agree with the ruling, they had to respect it. That is the nature of our democracy. There are only 2 ways to react or to act to a court ruling. You either accept and respect that ruling, and if you don't want to do that, you go and appeal. In the absence of any appeal, then the status quo, as the ruling was made, takes precedent. And so I agree fully with Junet Mohammed. He actually spoke like a lawyer, and I know he's not one. But then I should blame Azimio, especially the ODM party. The ODM party rushed to go and work with William Samoei Ruto. Now all this is catching them up in a very precarious position. Had they been working together as a team, had they been working together as part of the Azimio fraternity, together with Kalonzo and Martha Karua and Eugene, Had Martha Karua stayed put in Azimio, this ruling should have found them together, solid, with the Kenyans behind them. Things would have been different. But you see, this ruling is now coming at a time when ODM, even though they are saying they are not part of the government, they decided to work with William Ruto, gave out some experts to help William Ruto. Martha Karua has gone. I think DAP also went. They seem to be disorganized, and it is not very easy to stay put after an election. Remember, parties and coalitions are just vehicles that are formed with one purpose: to win an election. That is why after losing an election or after winning, it is not very easy to stay together. That is why William Ruto and Gachagua have fallen out. That is why Raila and all the Azimio fraternity, Azimio is disintegrated. If you ask ODM, they tell you there is no Azimio. We are standing on our own. And I want to blame the Azimio for all this that is happening. It is going to be a uniting factor. But then there is no proper unity, because as Junet was putting it, he's saying we recognize that William Ruto is the president and we will support. If you listen and you scrutinize the words of Junet Mohammed, then you will agree with me that ODM is fully in the government. But something else is coming up. This is a litmus test to the Ruto-Raila handshake or the broad-based government. Junet is saying we need to broaden, tighten, and I don't know do what, but he's wondering why they want to stick together in the broad-based government. But when it is their turn to hold and lead as the majority coalition, then it raises eyebrows and the other side does not want it. And I can assure you, you can take this to the bank, that this is going to be the breaking point. Because Junet is saying, I'm not leaving this seat any soon. And he means it. But if you ask me, I have a feeling that Moses Wetangula is still going to repeat his ruling. He's still going to maintain that Azimio is the minority leader, Kenya Kwanza is the majority leader. In the event that he rules to quash the court ruling, because he had said no one is going to come from outside to decide for them how they conduct their business, I can assure you that this is going to be the breaking point. And this is going to be an impetus even to create chaos within the broad-based government, because you've seen within the ODM, people like Simba Arati, people like the Secretary General Sifuna are saying that we are not in this government. We have to play our role as the opposition. Now, if Moses Wetangula rules in favor of Kenya Kwanza, then ODM is going to see the very software that Kenya Kwanza is made of, that UDA is made of, and they are going to really see that they are not in this government. They were just invited, and they are going to see for the first time that all the noise that they have been making, they are not the owners in this government. They were just invited. You've seen people like Joho, Junet, Robert Alai, Wanga. They've been, and of course, I'm forgetting Upondo Kaluma. They have been very vocal, supporting William Ruto, protecting William Ruto. They have sanitized Adani. Whenever kids have been kidnapped, youths have been kidnapped, they protect William Samuel Ruto. This is the moment. Mbivu na mbichi yatajulikana. And ODM will know that they are not in this government as owners. They are invited guests, and they will be shown that e-government ina wenyewe. Tension is still rising up because Raila Amolo Odinga is soon going to face the Djibouti candidate in the African Union Commission election. Let me tell you, if Raila loses that quest and Moses Wetangula rules that Kenya Kwanza is the majority coalition, trust me, Raila is going to start it from where he left it. And the ODM will join the opposition. And if there are people who still believe that William Ruto is the best, ODM is going to be divided in the middle. There is this part that will join people like Rigathi Gachagua. But I also want to say this. I noticed that during such moments, Wetangula is now saying, is proclaiming the independence of the legislative arm of the government, the independence of parliament. And he's saying that no one is going to come from outside to decide for them what to do. Parliament has never been independent. Even the High Court in its ruling noted that Moses Wetangula acted outside the constitution and he was only hell-bent to support the executive. The executive has always been controlling all these arms of the government, the judiciary and the parliament. So for Moses Wetangula to come now and tell us that, you know, no one is going to come from outside to tell us what to do, he's pretending. Parliament has never been independent. And the last time I checked, the judiciary is there to interpret matters law. If Moses Wetangula declared that the Kenya Kwanza was the majority party, it behoved ODM to go, or the Kenya, or the Azimio, to go and ask the court to interpret. And the courts have come out and pronounced themselves that Moses Wetangula made a mistake. Moses Wetangula cannot now come up and say that he does not recognize the ruling of the High Court. If that happens, then we are creating chaos. William Ruto had said that he was not going to obey court rulings. Now Moses Wetangula is doing the same. If that happens, then ODM must have a very urgent sitting and decide and champion their own cause, because they are being used. There's no better way to put it. They are being used. If the court decided that they are the majority, then Junet must not leave that seat. I don't know what to think, but they must stay put. Otherwise, they will still blame themselves for rushing to go and work with the government. We are waiting for that ruling. As at the time I was doing this video, the ruling has not been made. But I strongly believe that Moses is going to rule in favor of Kenya Kwanza, and that is going to be the genesis of the end of this broad-based government.